Have you ever found yourself frozen in the middle of a conversation, searching desperately for the right English words that just won't come? That moment when your mind goes completely blank, even though you've been studying for years. What if I told you that there's a secret to speaking English fluently that has nothing to do with grammar books, vocabulary lists, or expensive courses? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself speaking English confidently and naturally, without hesitation, without fear, without that painful mental translation process. Imagine the doors that would open in your life: better jobs, international friendships, the freedom to travel anywhere in the world and feel at home. This isn't just a dream. It can be your reality, and much sooner than you think. My name is Grace, and today I'm going to reveal the truth that language schools don't want you to know. English is not difficult. You're not struggling because you lack intelligence or talent. You're struggling because you've been taught the wrong way. In the next hour, I'm going to completely transform how you think about learning English. I'll share powerful techniques that will help you break through the barriers holding you back. These aren't just theories, they're practical methods that have helped thousands of my students go from feeling stuck and frustrated to speaking English with confidence and joy. So if you're tired of studying without results, if you're ready to stop feeling nervous every time you need to speak English, then stay with me. This might just be the most important conversation you've ever had about language learning. Let's begin with the most fundamental truth. The biggest obstacle to speaking English fluently isn't in your textbooks, it's in your mind. Think about this for a moment. When you speak your native language, do you worry about grammar rules? Do you carefully construct each sentence before saying it? Of course not. You simply express yourself naturally, without thinking about the mechanics of the language. Yet when it comes to English, so many of us get trapped in a mental prison of fear, perfectionism, and overthinking. We're afraid of making mistakes, of being judged, of sounding foolish. And this fear is the first and greatest barrier to fluency. I understand this fear intimately. When I was learning my second language, I experienced the same paralyzing anxiety. I would know exactly what I wanted to say in my native language, but when I tried to express it in the new language, my mind would go blank. I'd stumble over words, make grammar mistakes, and feel utterly embarrassed. It was frustrating and discouraging, especially after years of study. But then I discovered something revolutionary. The problem wasn't my knowledge of the language. The problem was my approach to using it. You see, traditional language education focuses almost exclusively on grammar rules, vocabulary memorization, and structured exercises. It treats language as an academic subject to be studied rather than a living skill to be acquired and used. This approach might help you pass written exams, but it does very little to prepare you for real-world communication. Think about how you learned your first language as a child. Did your parents give you grammar lessons? Did they make you memorize vocabulary lists? Of course not. You learned naturally, through immersion, through trial and error, through the necessity of communication. You learned by listening, by imitating, by making countless mistakes and gradually improving. This natural approach to language acquisition is not just for children, it works for adults too. In fact, in many ways, adults can learn languages more efficiently than children because we have cognitive advantages. We understand concepts more quickly. We can recognize patterns, and we can apply learning strategies that children can't. The key is to stop treating English as a subject to study and start treating it as a tool for communication. Instead of trying to speak perfect English, focus on communicating effectively. Instead of fearing mistakes, welcome them as essential steps on your path to fluency. From today, I want you to start repeating this powerful affirmation. English is easy. I can speak English. I am improving every day. These aren't just empty words, they're a way of reprogramming your mind, of breaking down the psychological barriers that have been holding you back. Never again say, "My English is bad," or "I can't speak English." These negative statements become self-fulfilling prophecies. Instead, say, "I'm learning," or "I'm improving every day." This simple shift in mindset can make a dramatic difference in your progress. I've seen this transformation happen countless times with my students. One student, Miguel, had studied English for over a decade, but still felt paralyzed when trying to speak. He knew the grammar rules perfectly and had an impressive vocabulary, but his fear of making mistakes was so overwhelming that he could barely string a sentence together in conversation. We started by addressing his mindset. Instead of focusing on speaking perfectly, we focused on communicating effectively. He began practicing everyday conversations, talking to himself in the mirror, recording his voice, and gradually increasing his comfort with speaking English. Within just a few weeks, Miguel noticed a dramatic change. He was no longer translating in his head before speaking. Words started coming to him naturally. He began thinking in English rather than in his native language. And most importantly, his fear began to dissolve. He still made mistakes, we all do, even in our native languages, but those mistakes no longer paralyzed him. After 3 months, Miguel was having fluent conversations in English, applying for international jobs, and even making jokes in his new language. It wasn't because he learned more grammar or memorized more vocabulary. It was because he changed his relationship with the language. Now, let's talk about how you can create an English environment in your daily life, no matter where you live. One of the biggest myths about language learning is that you need to live in an English-speaking country to become fluent. This simply isn't true. You can create an immersive English environment wherever you are. Start by changing the language settings on your phone, computer, and social media accounts to English. This simple change ensures that you're exposed to English vocabulary and phrases throughout your day in a context that's relevant and meaningful to you. Next, begin incorporating English into your daily routine. When you wake up in the morning, narrate your activities in English, either out loud or in your head. I'm getting out of bed. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm making coffee. These simple narrations help train your brain to think directly in English rather than translating from your native language. Another powerful technique is to label items in your home with their English names. Put sticky notes on your mirror, refrigerator table, chair, and other common objects. Each time you see or use these items, say their names aloud in English. This creates a direct connection between the object and its English name, bypassing the translation step that slows down so many language learners. The goal of these exercises isn't to make you fluent overnight. It's to make English a natural, integrated part of your daily life rather than a separate subject you study for an hour and then forget. Language acquisition happens through consistent, meaningful exposure and use, not through occasional intensive study sessions. Now, let's address one of the most common obstacles to English fluency: an excessive focus on grammar. Don't get me wrong, grammar is important. It provides the structure that makes communication possible, but many language learners become so fixated on perfect grammar that they can't speak at all. Think about children learning their first language. They don't study grammar rules before they start speaking. They learn by listening, imitating, and communicating. Grammar comes naturally through use, not through conscious study. Instead of memorizing abstract grammar rules, focus on learning common phrases and sentence patterns. For example, instead of studying the present continuous tense as a concept, learn practical sentences like, I am eating breakfast, or she is reading a book, or they are playing soccer. Use these sentences in your daily life, adapt them to different situations, and gradually your understanding of grammar will develop naturally. When you hear a new phrase or sentence structure from a native speaker, don't just understand it, repeat it, use it. Make it your own. This is how your brain internalizes language patterns without the need for explicit grammar study. Let me share a story about another student of mine, Anna, who had been studying English grammar for years but still struggled to form sentences when speaking. Her knowledge of grammar rules was impressive. She could explain the differences between present perfect and past simple tenses better than many native speakers, but this knowledge didn't translate into speaking ability. We changed her approach completely. Instead of studying more grammar, we focused on learning and using common phrases and expressions. She began watching English TV shows and repeating the phrases she heard. She practiced simple conversations about her daily activities. She stopped trying to construct grammatically perfect sentences and instead concentrated on communicating her thoughts, however imperfectly. The results were remarkable. Within a few months, Anna was speaking more fluently than she ever had before. Her grammar wasn't perfect, but it was improving naturally through use. More importantly, she was communicating effectively and gaining confidence with each conversation. This brings us to another crucial aspect of language learning: a practical, everyday usage. Many language learners struggle because they don't know what to say or how to say it in real life situations. Let's solve this problem by exploring common daily scenarios and the English phrases you can use in them. Let's start with morning routines. When you wake up, you can practice English by talking to yourself. Good morning. I slept really well last night. Time to get up and start the day. As you go through your morning routine, narrate your actions. I'm brushing my teeth now. This toothpaste tastes minty. Now I'm going to take a shower. In the kitchen, continue the narration. I'm making coffee. It smells delicious. I'm toasting some bread for breakfast. I like my toast with butter and jam. These simple narrations might feel strange at first, but they serve an important purpose. They help you associate everyday activities directly with English expressions, bypassing the translation step that slows down many language learners. Now let's imagine a conversation with a family member in the morning. Good morning. How did you sleep? I slept well, thanks. How about you? Pretty good. What are you making for? I'm making eggs and toast. Would you like some? Yes, please. Can I have some coffee too? Of course. The coffee is almost ready. Thanks. It smells amazing. Practice these exchanges, even if you don't have someone to speak English with. You can role-play both parts of the conversation, switching between characters. This helps you develop fluency in common everyday interactions. When you leave your home, continue using English to describe what you're doing and what you see. I'm walking to the bus stop. It's a sunny day today. There are many people waiting for the bus. If you go shopping, practice the kind of conversation you might have in a stores. Excuse me, do you have any fresh tomatoes? Yes, they're right over here. How much are they per pound? They're $2.99 per pound. Great, I'll take 2 pounds, please. And do you have any onions? Yes, they're in the next aisle. Thank you. That will be all for today. Your total is $8.55. Here you go. Have a nice day. Thank you. You too. By practicing these everyday conversations, you're building confidence in real-world communication. You're learning language in context, which is much more effective than studying isolated vocabulary words or grammar rules. Meeting friends provides another excellent opportunity for English practice. Here's a simple exchange you might have. Hey there! How are you doing today? I'm doing great. How about you? Good too. What have you been up to? Not much. Just working and relaxing at home. Do you want to grab a coffee? Sure, that sounds perfect. There's a nice cafe around the corner. At a cafe, you can practice ordering. Hello, what can I get for you today? I'd like a cappuccino, please. And I'll have an iced tea. Would you like anything to eat with that? No, just the drinks for now. Thank you. That'll be $7.50. Here you go. Keep the change. Thank you. Your drinks will be ready in a few minutes. In the evening, you can practice more domestic conversations. Today was such a busy day. What did you do? I went to work, then met with a friend for coffee. How about you? I had a long meeting and then went grocery shopping. I'm pretty tired now. Should we order takeout for dinner? I don't feel like cooking. Good idea. What are you in the mood for? How about pizza? Or maybe Chinese food? Pizza sounds perfect. I'll call and order. Before bed, continue your English practice with a brief self-reflection. Today was a good day. I practiced my English a lot. Tomorrow I'll wake up early and continue learning. I'm making progress every day. These everyday scenarios provide countless opportunities for language practice. The key is consistency using English throughout your day, not just during designated study times. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful techniques for improving your speaking skills: listen and repeat. This method is remarkably simple, but incredibly effective. When you hear a phrase or sentence in English, don't just listen passively, repeat it aloud. Copy not just the words, but also the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. For example, if you hear the sentence, I'm going to the store to buy some groceries, say it aloud, trying to match the pronunciation and rhythm of the original. Repeat it several times until it feels natural coming out of your mouth. This technique serves multiple purposes. First, it helps improve your pronunciation by training your mouth to form the sounds of English correctly. Second, it helps you internalize common sentence structures without having to consciously study grammar rules. And third, it builds your confidence by giving you ready-made phrases that you know are correct and natural sounding. You can practice this technique with various sources: movies, TV shows, podcasts, YouTube videos, or language learning apps. The key is to actively engage with the material rather than passively consuming it. Pause after short phrases or sentences and repeat what you've heard, trying to mimic the native speaker as closely as possible. As your skills improve, you can move from simple repetition to more creative practice. After repeating a sentence exactly as you heard it, try modifying it slightly to express your own thoughts. For example, if the original sentence was, I'm going to the store to buy some groceries, you might change it to, I'm going to the library to borrow some books. Or, she's going to the park to meet her friends. This kind of practice helps you develop flexibility with the language, allowing you to use familiar structures to express your own unique thoughts and needs. Let's talk about pronunciation, which is a common concern for many English learners. You don't need to sound like a native speaker to communicate effectively in English. In fact, many successful English speakers around the world maintain aspects of their native accent while speaking clearly and comprehensibly. The goal should be clarity, not perfection. Focus on being understood rather than eliminating every trace of your accent. That said, There are some specific techniques that can help improve your pronunciation. First, pay attention to the sounds that don't exist in your native language, as these will be the most challenging for you to pronounce correctly. For English learners from different language backgrounds, different sounds present challenges. For Spanish speakers, it might be the distinction between ship and sheep or hit and heat. For Japanese speakers, it might be the difference between and L sounds. For Arabic speakers, it might be certain vowel distinctions or the P sound. Identify your specific pronunciation challenges and practice those sounds deliberately. There are many online resources that provide targeted exercises for specific pronunciation issues. Second, record yourself speaking English and listen critically to the playback. This can be uncomfortable at first. Most of us don't like hearing our own voices recorded, but it's an invaluable tool for improvement. Recording yourself allows you to hear your pronunciation objectively and identify areas for improvement. Third, focus on the rhythm and intonation of English, not just individual sounds. English is a timed language, which means that stressed syllables occur at regular intervals, while unstressed syllables are shortened. This gives English its characteristic rhythm, which is different from timed languages like Spanish or French. By paying attention to stress patterns and intonation, you can make your English sound more natural, even if your pronunciation of individual sounds isn't perfect. Now let's address another common challenge: building confidence in speaking. Many English learners understand the language well but feel too nervous or shy to speak. Here are some strategies to overcome this barrier. Start by speaking to yourself in private, where there's no pressure or judgment. Talk about your day. Describe what you see around you, or have imaginary conversations. This private practice helps build your confidence before you speak with others. When you do speak with others, use the 3-second rule. Give yourself just 3 seconds to respond to a question or comment. Then start speaking even if you're not sure exactly what you're going to say. This prevents overthinking and helps you develop the habit of responding naturally. Remember that mistakes are not just normal, they're necessary. Every language learner makes mistakes, and these errors are valuable opportunities for improvement. Instead of being embarrassed by your mistakes, see them as signs that you're pushing your boundaries and growing your skills. Start with simple conversations on familiar topics where you feel confident. As your comfort level increases, gradually challenge yourself with more complex discussions or unfamiliar subjects. Another powerful confidence-building technique is to prepare certain phrases or responses in advance for common situations. Having these ready-made expressions at your disposal can reduce anxiety and help conversations flow more smoothly. For example, you might prepare phrases for introducing yourself. Hi, I'm Kenim. It's nice to meet you. Asking for clarification. Could you please repeat that? Or, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Could you say that differently? Buying time when you need to think. That's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment. Expressing opinions. In my opinion, or I believe that, or from my perspective. Having these phrases ready reduces the cognitive load during conversations, allowing you to focus on the content of what you're saying rather than struggling with how to say it. Now, let's discuss one of the most transformative skills for English fluency: thinking in English. As long as you're translating from your native language to English in your head, your speaking will remain slow and hesitant. The key to fluency is training your brain to think directly in English. At first, this might seem impossible, especially if you've been learning English through translation for years. But with the right approach, you can gradually develop this ability. Start with simple labeling. Throughout your day, look at objects around you and think of their English names directly, without first thinking of the word in your native language. See a tree. Think tree, not the equivalent word in your language first. See a car. Think car. This simple exercise begins to create direct connections between objects and their English names in your brain. Next, move to simple phrases and sentences. When you're performing daily activities, narrate them in English in your mind. I'm drinking coffee. I'm walking to work. The weather is nice today. These straightforward sentences help your brain become accustomed to forming thoughts directly in English. As you become more comfortable with simple narration, begin forming more complex thoughts in English. Ask yourself questions and answer them in English. Describe your feelings, opinions, and plans in English. Have imaginary conversations in your mind. Reading extensively in English also helps develop the ability to think in the language. Choose materials that are at or slightly above your current level of comprehension. As you read, try to understand directly in English without mentally translating into your native language. Similarly, listening to English regularly trains your brain to process the language directly. Podcasts, audiobooks, TV shows, and movies all provide valuable input that helps develop this skill. One particularly effective exercise is to keep a journal in English. Set aside 10-15 minutes each day to write about your experiences, thoughts, and feelings in English. Don't worry about perfect grammar or sophisticated vocabulary. Focus on expressing yourself directly in English without using your native language as an intermediary. Developing the ability to think in English is a gradual process, not an overnight transformation. You'll likely find that you can think in English about certain familiar topics before others. You might also notice that you switch between thinking in English and thinking in your native language, depending on the complexity of the subject or your emotional state. This is completely normal. With consistent practice, the proportion of your thinking that happens directly in English will gradually increase until it becomes your default mode when using the language. This is when true fluency begins, when English is no longer a foreign code that you have to laboriously translate, but a natural tool for expression and communication. Let me share a story about one of my students, David, who struggled with this exact issue. David had studied English for many years and had a solid understanding of grammar and vocabulary. But whenever he tried to speak, there was always a noticeable delay as he translated from his native Spanish to English. We focused intensively on developing his ability to think in English. He began by labeling objects in his home with their English names and narrating his daily activities in simple English sentences. He listened to English podcasts during his commute and watched English TV shows without subtitles. He kept a daily journal in English, writing about his day and his thoughts without using Spanish as a crutch. At first, progress was slow. David found it difficult to break the habit of mental translation that he had developed over years of traditional language study. But gradually, he began to notice changes. Certain common phrases started coming to him automatically in English. He found himself dreaming in English occasionally. He could respond to simple questions without that momentary delay for translation. After about 3 months of consistent practice, David experienced what he described as a breakthrough moment. He was having a conversation in English and suddenly realized that he had been speaking for several minutes without once thinking about how to say something in Spanish first. The words were flowing naturally, and he was expressing his thoughts directly in English. It wasn't perfect, He still made grammar mistakes and sometimes searched for vocabulary, but the mental barrier of translation had been broken. This brings us to another important aspect of fluency, dealing with hesitation and maintaining the flow of speech. Even when you've begun thinking in English, you may still experience moments where you hesitate, lose your train of thought, or can't find the right word. This is normal, even for advanced speakers, but there are strategies to minimize these disruptions and maintain fluency. First, develop the habit of circumlocution, the ability to express an idea using alternative words when you can't remember the exact term you want. Instead of stopping and searching for a specific word, describe the concept using simpler language. For example, if you can't remember the word screwdriver, you might say, the tool you use to tighten or loosen screws. This keeps the conversation flowing and often leads to learning the forgotten word from your conversation partner. Second, use filler phrases appropriately to give yourself time to think without awkward silences. Phrases like, well, let me think about that, or that's an interesting question, or what I mean is, can provide valuable seconds to organize your thoughts while maintaining the flow of conversation. Be careful not to overuse these fillers, but strategically employed, they can be valuable tools for fluent communication. Third, practice speaking at a slightly slower pace than you might in your native language. Many language learners try to speak too quickly in an attempt to sound fluent, but this often leads to more mistakes and hesitations. Speaking at a measured pace gives you time to form your thoughts and pronounce words clearly. As your fluency increases, your natural speaking pace will also increase. Fourth, don't be afraid to ask for help or clarification when needed. Phrases like, how do you say? Or, what's the word for? Show that you're actively engaged in the conversation and trying to communicate effectively. Most native speakers will appreciate your effort and be happy to help. Now let's discuss a daily plan for developing fluency. Consistency is key in language learning, and small daily actions are more effective than occasional intensive study sessions. Here's a simple daily routine that can help you develop fluency in English. Morning, 15-20 minutes. Begin your day by thinking in English as soon as you wake up. Narrate your morning routine in English. Either out loud or in your mind, label objects around you with their English names. Read a short article or listen to a brief podcast in English while having breakfast throughout the day. Scattered moments. Set your phone, computer, and social media accounts to English. Use English to take notes, write shopping lists, or set reminders. Take advantage of dead time, waiting in line, commuting, etc. to listen to English content if possible. Have short English conversations with colleagues, friends, or language exchange partners. Evening, 20-30 minutes. Watch an English TV show or YouTube video. Practice the listen and repeat technique with a short audio clip. Record yourself speaking in English for 1-2 minutes about your day. Write a few sentences in an English journal about what you experienced or learned before bed. 5 minutes. Review any new vocabulary or phrases you encountered during the day. Think about your day in English. Set a specific language learning goal for tomorrow. This routine requires only about an hour of dedicated time spread throughout the day, but it keeps you consistently engaged with English. The key is not the quantity of time, but the regularity of exposure and practice. Remember that language learning is not linear. You'll experience periods of rapid progress, followed by crests where it seems like you're not improving. This is normal and happens to all language learners. During plateaus, it's important to vary your learning materials and methods to stimulate new neural connections. Try different types of content, engage with different topics, or practice different language skills, reading, writing, listening? Speaking to keep your learning fresh and challenging. Let me share one more student success story that illustrates the power of consistent practice. Hiro was a Japanese student who had studied English academically for many years, but still struggled with real-world communication. His reading and writing skills were strong, but his listening comprehension and speaking abilities were limited. He came to me frustrated and ready to give up on ever becoming fluent. We developed a personalized daily practice routine for Hiro that focused heavily on listening and speaking his weakest areas. Every morning, he listened to short English podcasts and repeated phrases aloud. During his commute, he practiced thinking in English about his plans for the day. At lunch, he watched English YouTube videos on topics that interested him. In the evening, he recorded himself speaking about his day and then listened critically to identify areas for improvement. The most important aspect of Hiro's routine was consistency. Even on busy days, he made sure to engage with English in some way, even if just for a few minutes. He tracked his practice on a calendar, marking each day he completed his routine with a satisfying check mark. Seeing the unbroken chain of checks became a powerful motivator. After 6 months of consistent practice, Hiro's speaking and listening skills had improved dramatically. He could understand most conversational English without difficulty and could express himself clearly, if not perfectly. He no longer felt anxious when speaking with native English speakers and even started joining international meetup groups to practice his skills in real-world settings. The key to Hiro's success wasn't some magical technique or expensive course. It was consistent, focused practice over time. He built English into his daily life rather than treating it as a separate subject to study occasionally. As we near the end of our discussion, I want to address a concern that many language learners have: perfectionism. The desire to speak perfectly, without any grammar mistakes or accent, is one of the biggest obstacles to fluency. Perfectionism leads to hesitation, anxiety, and reluctance to speak at all, unless you're absolutely certain what you're saying is correct. Here's the truth. There is no such thing as perfect language use, even among native speakers. Native English speakers make grammar mistakes, use words incorrectly, forget vocabulary, and express themselves unclearly all the time. The difference is that they're not paralyzed by the fear of these imperfections. The goal of language learning should not be perfection, but effective communication. Can you express your thoughts, needs, and feelings in a way that others understand? Can you comprehend what others are saying to you? These are the true measures of language proficiency, not grammatical perfection or native-like pronunciation. This doesn't mean you should be careless about improving your English. It means that you should see mistakes as valuable feedback rather than embarrassing failures. Each error highlights an area where you can focus your learning. But these improvements should happen gradually, through consistent practice, not through anxious self-monitoring during conversations. Remember that language is a tool for connection, not a test to be passed. The most successful language learners are those who use the language regularly and fearlessly, gradually refining their skills through experience, rather than trying to achieve perfection before they begin speaking. I've seen so many students transform their relationship with English by letting go of perfectionism. They become more fluent not because they make fewer mistakes, but because they stop letting the fear of mistakes hold them back. They engage more confidently in conversations, which gives them more practice, which in turn leads to genuine improvement. It's a virtuous cycle that begins with accepting imperfection as part of the learning process. As we wrap up, let me share some final thoughts on motivation and perseverance. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be days when you feel like you're making incredible progress and days when you feel like you're going backward. There will be moments of exhilaration when you successfully navigate a complex conversation in English and moments of frustration when you can't remember a simple word you've learned a dozen times. The key to long-term success is maintaining your motivation through these ups and downs. Here are some strategies that can help connect your language learning to your deeper goals and values. Why do you want to learn English? Is it for career advancement, education, travel, personal relationships, or cultural appreciation? Keeping these meaningful goals in mind can provide sustained motivation when the learning process becomes challenging. Celebrate small victories. Learning a language involves thousands of tiny steps forward. Take time to acknowledge and celebrate these small achievements. The first time you understand a movie without subtitles, the first joke you tell in English, the first dream you have in English. These moments of progress, however small, are significant milestones on your journey to fluency. Find enjoyment in the process. The most successful language learners are those who find ways to make learning enjoyable rather than a chore. Explore different types of English content until you find materials that genuinely interest you, whether that's music, movies, podcasts, books, or conversations with specific people. When you're engaged with content you enjoy, learning happens more naturally and with less conscious effort. Connect with a community of fellow learners. Sharing your challenges and successes with others who understand the language learning journey can provide both practical support and emotional encouragement. This could be an in-person language exchange group, an online forum, or even just one study partner who shares your goals. Be patient and kind with yourself. Language learning is not linear, and everyone progresses at their own pace. Some aspects of the language will come easily to you, while others will require more time and practice. This is normal and doesn't reflect your intelligence or ability. It's simply part of the complex process of acquiring a new language. My amazing students, you now have all the tools and strategies you need to speak English fluently, confidently, and naturally. You understand that English is not difficult. The only things holding you back are fear and hesitation, and you now know how to overcome both. Remember that learning English is not just about memorizing rules and words. It's about changing how you think and communicate. It's about integrating a new language into your life in a way that feels natural and enjoyable. It's about connecting with others across cultural and linguistic boundaries. The journey to fluency is not always easy, but it is infinitely rewarding. Each step you take brings you closer to a wider world of opportunities, better jobs, international friendships, access to global knowledge and entertainment, and the simple joy of expressing yourself in a new language. So go forth with courage and determination. Speak English every day, even if it's just to yourself. Listen actively, think directly in English, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Embrace the learning process with all its challenges and victories. I believe in you completely. You have the capacity to become a confident English speaker, and now you have the strategies to make it happen. The only question that remains is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue with the old ways that haven't been working, or will you embrace these new approaches and transform your relationship with English? The choice is yours, and the journey begins today. Start small, be consistent, and watch as your English skills grow day by day, week by week, month by month. Before you know it, you'll be speaking with a fluency and confidence you once thought impossible. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of natural English learning. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it with friends who are also learning English. Leave a comment to let me know which strategies you're going to try first, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another episode filled with practical English learning advice. Give this episode a thumbs up if you're committed to improving your English using these natural methods. Remember, your journey to English fluency starts now, and I'm here to support you every step of the way.